Hi again, July here with the second video in which I show you some of my randomly picked screenshots from my screenshot collection. First of all, my apologies for not uploading any videos for 3 weeks, I think. I've been extremely busy with university, but today I do have some time, so I have decided to make a second video of my screenshot video series. What I remember from the comments on the first video is that you liked the video, but that you wish I explained a little less, or that I didn't spend as much time as I did on each screenshot. So today I'm going to try to keep everything a little bit shorter, but I'm a RuneScape historian and there is a lot to tell about RuneScape history. Okay, so let's get started. The first screenshot was posted, I believe, on the RuneScape website when the quest Dimension of Disaster was released in March of 2015. It was released as the 200th quest, so that was a special milestone for Jagex. I remember Jagex organized a whole lot of events. I remember the Questival or something like that, but they also shared some interesting statistics, as you can see on the screen, but I'm going to split this up into two screenshots so that it's a little easier for you to follow. So in part 1 of the screenshot, you can see that by March of 2015, which is when the 200 quest was released, there were over 150 hours of questing content. You can also see that the quest Cook's Assistant was the most completed quest in RuneScape at the time, being completed almost 18 million times. And then you can also see a little bit about the first ever quests created. And there's some interesting things to say about that. Most of you probably know that Cook's Assistant was or is officially RuneScape's first quest, but the order of the next 5 quests is also pretty much determined. But I will make another video about that at some point because there is quite a bit to say about that. Then let's see what it says in the second part of the screenshot. There you can see that While Gothic Sleeps was the longest quest at the time with over 190 minutes of gameplay. If I'm not mistaken, that one was released in November of 2008 and introduced the Tormented Demons and the Dragon Claws. The Dragon Claws being extremely powerful at the time, especially in the absence of combat abilities. Okay, so then for the next screenshot, we have an interesting poll from the Tipit website. So on the 7th of May of 2007, Tipit posted a poll on their website and it asked, would you continue to play RuneScape if Jagex stopped updating it? So there are two things to point out here that are important. So first of all, it's that almost 14k players participated in the poll, which is quite a lot. And then also the date, so the 7th of May of 2007. So if you watched my previous video about old school RuneScape, then you will know, or then you might remember that when old school RuneScape was originally launched, it was a replica of what the game was like on the 10th of August of 2007. So this poll was posted on the Tipit website just a couple of months before that date. And that's interesting because I remember at the time when old school RuneScape was launched in 2013, there was some discussion as to whether or not old school RuneScape should receive updates or not. That was an important discussion at the time, and now let's say that Jagex had decided not to update old school RuneScape so that we would still have all the content from 2007 basically, so nothing new that came afterwards. And then let's assume that this poll from 2007 would be representative for today as well, or for, well, you know what I mean, for old school RuneScape today. Then you can see that only 28% would continue playing if old school RuneScape did not receive any updates. Whether that poll is actually representative of the old school RuneScape situation back when it was launched in 2013, that's something that no one will be able to tell, but it is quite interesting nonetheless, and that's because these poll results were the true sentiment of the RuneScape community at the time back in 2007, so why could it not have been the same 6 years later when old school RuneScape was launched? I know that I'm rambling a little bit now, but I think the point that I'm trying to make is that it is important that old school RuneScape continues being updated and that it has been updated for the past 7 years since its launch, because this poll does seem to indicate that a lot of players would quit if old school RuneScape did not receive continuous updates. Then let's move on, and then we have a screenshot of Wilderness PvP in RuneScape 1, and this looks like it may have been some sort of clan event or community event of some sort. So what I want you to look at, well, take a look at the minimap. So you can see where it says like the wind directions, like northwest, east, and south. You can see there's a blue patch. So that's at the western border of the wilderness. At the time, and then I mean 2002 or 2003, which is when the screenshot was probably taken, the wilderness was surrounded by ocean, except to the south, of course. So to the east, to the west, to the north, all of it was ocean. And it remained like that until the release of Trollheim and the snowy areas to the west of the wilderness, of course. And those locations were added to the game in, I believe, the final months of 2004. So that's everything for this screenshot. Then the next screenshot. And then we have a screenshot showing the penguin, hide and seek, distraction, and diversion. So first of all, I have to repeat that these were randomly chosen, these screenshots for this video. So I used a random number generator, and this is what popped up. I like doing it this way because I believe that each screenshot has its own story and that something interesting can be said about every screenshot. So let's find out if that's true or if I can come up with something. So what immediately stands out is of course the HD graphics, which makes sense because the penguin hide and seek was added to the game in the final half of 2008, so that is when HD was already in the game. And also interesting to point out is that the penguin hide and seek was one of the first 3 distractions and diversions that were added to the game. It was released together with the Shooting Star D&D and with the Balthazar's Bonanza D&D. If I'm not mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I'm right there, because I posted something about it on my Twitter profile last month. As part of the 2008 Halloween event, also the penguins became pumpkins for probably 2 weeks or so. Now I don't know if this ended up being a recurring thing or if it was just in 2008 that they became pumpkins. So if you do know, let me know in the comments. And something else you should let me know in the comments, do you think that the penguin hide and seek D&D should be added to old school RuneScape or not? So let me know what you think about that. Then the next screenshot, and then we have Malak from the Desert Treasure quest, I believe. The screenshot was taken in Canifis. So the quest Desert Treasure was released in April of 2005, and it was hugely important for the game at the time and also in the following years, of course due to its Ancient Magic spellbook as the reward for completing the quest. I have already made a video about the release of Desert Treasure and how it impacted the game. I will add a link to it in the video description. It's one of my older videos because some of you know I actually began making videos in 2016 and then I quit for a few years and now I'm back. So it's one of those older videos. I will link to it in the video description. You can also see the old interface layout, by the way. So then I mean where it says public chat, private chat, etc. This is the layout that came right before the layout that we have in old school RuneScape right now. This is the layout that remained in the game until August of 2007 when the clan chat was added to the game. And then I mean the original clan chat, so that's what we now call the friends chat in RuneScape 3 for those of you who played RuneScape 3 as opposed to old school RuneScape. Okay, so that's that. Then for the next screenshot. Oh, and this is a good one. This is the stuff that you watch my videos for, so pay close attention. So what you see on the screen is an IRC excerpt from the 7th of May of 2001. I know that's the date because this is part of a larger excerpt, but I couldn't fit everything into this screenshot. And so first things first, IRC or Internet Relay Chat was an extremely popular text chat program back in 2001 and actually also in the next years, because I know that many clans used to use Internet Relay Chat until let's say 2010 or so. So the Mr. Andrew that you see in this screenshot is indeed the Andrew. So Andrew Gower, one of the original creators of RuneScape. So back in 2001, he would frequently join one or more RuneScape channels on IRC. And sometimes he would talk about upcoming updates, as you can see right here. So in the top part of the screenshot, underneath the wilderness title, it asks, will the wilderness contain just monsters or will it contain NPCs, mining sites and quests? So at the time, there was no wilderness yet. There was an alternative PKing system. Basically, people could choose whether they wanted to become a PKer or a non-PKer when creating an account, and then they could switch back and forth, I think 2 times or 3 times, and then that one remained your permanent status. So that's the system that was in place at the time. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I will make another video about that as there is no time for it in this video. Anyway, so there were a lot of complaints about that system, and that's why Andrew proposed the alternative of the wilderness, which had already happened by then. So the people knew that a wilderness was going to be released at some point. They didn't know when yet, and so this is Gryffindor asking some stuff about it. And then you can see that Andrew answers, no quest, it will contain treasure and mining sites, and monsters of course, and only aggressive NPCs. Then in the middle part you can see a question about pickaxes. Will we ever be able to wield a pickaxe, or would that make it too easy? And that is true because if you've played RuneScape Classic, or just back in the day, you know, when it was just RuneScape, then you will know that pickaxes could not be wielded, and it would eventually take until the launch of RuneScape 2 in March of 2004 for that to become possible. Then in the bottom part of the screenshot, you can see a question about the black armor set, and then with Andrew responding that it will never become smithable. I have a few other screenshots like this one, so of IRC stuff with Andrew saying or discussing RuneScape content or future updates. So maybe one of them will get picked in my next videos. We will see. Okay, so then moving on. So this is the observatory. You might wonder, so what can we say about that? Well, there is something interesting, or at least interesting enough for me to want to share it. As you might know, Stephen Hawking was a famous theoretical physicist and one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century, but he passed away in 2018. With Stephen Hawking being British, Jagex decided to pay tribute to him in the game by introducing a new achievement. So then we're talking about RuneScape 3 achievements, and with the achievement being titled A Brief History of Telescopes. And the achievement or the task asks you to peer through some telescopes in RuneScape, of course including the big one right here. I really like the title of the achievement, so A Brief History of Telescopes, because if you know a little bit about Stephen Hawking, then you will know that he wrote a best-selling book called A Brief History of Time. It's a great book, I've read it myself as well. And I just really like that Jagex turned the achievement into a reference to that book to remember Stephen Hawking. Okay, then the next screenshot is one that shows the agility arena in Brimhaven, which was released in July of 2004. You can also see that this screenshot was taken during a graphical glitch, and the screenshot in general just has a very old feel to it. So when the Brimhaven agility arena was added to the game, the Wilderness agility course was still the best place to train agility. So for many people, and then mainly the people who were afraid to venture into the wilderness, or for those who did not have the combat level to survive that far into the wilderness, the Brimhaven Agility Arena came as a welcome update to train agility, although, and this should be said as well, obviously agility wasn't the most popular skill at the time. I mean, it still isn't today, so definitely not back in 2004, but it was another good alternative for many players to train agility. So it was an important addition to the game nonetheless. Then the next screenshot is a high score screenshot, and it's a very special screenshot. So there's actually some things to say about this, so perhaps this one will take a little bit longer, but we'll see. So on the 1st of January of 2006, XX Neo XXX7 became the first player to reach 200 million fletching XP, and by doing so, he also became the first player to have 200 million XP in any skill. So before the 1st of January of 2006, no player had 200 million XP in any skill. And the fact that he became the first person to reach 200 million XP in any skill was a very important event for the skilling community, because at the time no one knew that there was a limit of 200 million XP. So what the achievement did was that it sparked a fiercer competition with people trying to race to 200 million XP as fast as possible. So then you might wonder right now, why is he not shown first but second in this screenshot? Well, that's what I'm going to explain now. So a couple of months later, Gilliard01 reached 200 million XP in fletching as well, and he was placed on top in the high scores. And when people realized it or heard about that, of course they immediately became discouraged and no longer wanted to go for 200 million XP. Because why would you go for 200 million XP if you were going to be pushed down the ranks anyway, as more and more people reach 200 million XP in a skill after you do, right? So that was kind of a setback for the skilling community, although it should be said that not many players actually had the ambition to go for 200 million XP in any skill. Anyway, Jagex did eventually fix it so that the player who was first would appear on top of the list regardless of who followed later. When exactly this happened is a little hard to tell because it was not mentioned in any update, I believe, or I must have missed it, because I don't know if I told you, but I went through all updates. So in the news archive, I went through all updates several times over the years, and I found nothing about this. But based on my screenshot collection, because of course I have many screenshots of the high scores, and not just the fletching high scores, but high scores in general. So based on my other high score screenshots, I would say that this was most likely fixed in the summer of 2007. So that's a year and a half after XX Neo XX7 originally reached 200 million XP in fletching. So what I want you to remember, this may look like just another high score screenshot, but a very important one in terms of RuneScape history, okay? Then the final screenshot shows a post that was made on the RuneScape forums on the 16th of August of 2006, so that is almost exactly 14 years ago. And it discusses the values of the Dagonaut King drops. Now, the Dagonaut Kings had been released a year earlier, and that as an important update for combat, but it also did something for woodcutting because it added the dragon axe to the game, which then remained the best axe for several years. So you can see that a year later it still had a value of 3 million GP. That said, of course, the update revolved around combat, so it also added some new items for combat to the game, and then mainly the 3 rings are interesting here. So you have the Berserker ring, the Archer ring, and the Seer's ring. These rings became and remained first choices for combat in their respective combat type, which also explains their value a year after the update. So this screenshot is interesting mainly because it shows some old prices from back in the day. So that is all for this video. Let me know what you think. Your feedback, etc. is always welcome. Also check out the video description, which is where I will add the link to the video about the release of Desert Treasure back in 2005. I will try to make another video within the next 2 weeks, so hopefully until then, bye.